Welcome to TLC for the Soul podcast, where soul meets spirit. You have entered into sacred space. I'm your host, Tammy Lynn Chambers, and I'm here to help you shine. Now let's get going on this podcast journey. Hello, friends. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am excited to be with you all here again in our special space. I want to welcome all of my new listeners, as well as my returning listeners. I invite you to settle in for yet another, exciting, fun-filled, interesting episode, magical-filled episode. As we are into the month of July. I'm recording this on July the 4th. This is, however, timeless. So these, especially the readings of the storytellings, follow along with eventually become a book. So you can use them later on, like if you find the ebook and you're coming to the story, there's always like a little bit of teachings and the guides coming in to share information for you, almost like a timeless card reading, so to speak, like a timeless tarot card or oracle card reading. The teachings that are brought forward, the information that's brought forward as we sit around the sacred circle is always meant for your highest and best good whenever you find it. So today we are starting with part 1 of Root Beer Float. I want to share just a few things with you guys since, I didn't have an episode in the middle of last week, so I'll share a little bit about that. We'll just get caught up with where we're at for those of you that listen to this when it drops. And for those of you that don't, that find it later, it's still pertinent to you on your journey when you find it. So you get the best of both worlds. You get a little mini collective reading or mini reading as it applies to you, and you get a magical intention story as well. So you choose how you want to listen to the podcast. You may just want to sit back and relax and just hear the story. You may choose to take your listening experience an octave higher. Join me around the sacred fire circle as I invite in today's guides, wisdom keepers, messengers, those that are supporting us in this month of July. Or you can take your listening experience even higher. I'm surrounding all of us in love light and light love. You can invite in your own wisdom keepers, star family and friends, fairy folk, witches, familiars, I don't know, whoever you want to work with, to join you, the guides that you work with, that you're familiar with and comfortable with. Could just be your own higher self, to share with you any meanings or visions or anything pertinent that might come up as you're hearing this little coffee talk and storytelling. A lot has happened, friends, since we last spoke a week ago. I read, today's going to be interesting because we're almost out of Mercury retrograde. The shadow period is over, I think, on the 7th, on 7/7. So funny. So much is coming up with regards to 7/7, 7/7/7. It doesn't have to be July 7th for you to be seeing all these sevens. But last week we read chapter 4 of this story. So piecemeal, this story, Root Beer Float, which was being called something different about a month or so ago. We read it like a chapter or so at a time. We met some of the characters, and then everything stopped with Mercury retrograde. And for me, like you'll notice if you follow me on any, like if you're following me on YouTube or on my Instagram, like everything's kind of stopped there. You haven't seen any posts from me or anything. And that I find that always happens around this time of the year for me. I always go, I go rogue around June, July, and up until Lionsgate. And then right about mid-August, I kind of come out of that. But there's always like deep stuff coming up for me to learn and experience and all sorts of new things. So I just kind of shut down those avenues. Like I don't like interact as much there because I'm just listening to what needs to be brought up. So that could be a message for you too. So let me, before we just jump into the story, because you guys know I like my intros, and this is all part of the magic. July. Okay, for the longest time, right, last week, I did somewhere there, I don't even know when it was now, we did the July, maybe we did have an episode last week, I'm telling you, this is where I'm at. Last week, I think we did the July energies. And I was a little bummed because I don't have my new Oracle decks that I ordered yet. So I ordered myself a copy of Shaman's Drum and of Twin Hearts, so I could preview them first before I put them up for sale. I have all my decks for sale on Make Playing Cards. If you want to go just see them or whatever, all the links to all this stuff I talk about are all in the show notes and the description of the podcast and all that, wherever you're finding it, regardless of where you're at. And so last Sunday, when we read a chapter of this story, the last kind of little thing was like magic and mischief are afoot. And I was like, oh, what does that mean, friends? So I don't know how it played out for you. I'll just share personally how it played out for me, because we went into really what happened, and if you don't, you're either going to vibe with this or you're not. You're going to be like, I didn't go into some 0 point. But for those of you that know what I'm talking about, like last week was like this 0 point reset, meaning we were kind of in this, some of you might call it the betwixt and between. I got such big chills for that. We were in this space of like you hear it like the old's not quite over and the new's not yet begun yet. And so weird stuff was happening like last week to get us on this July timeline that we're on, or that I jumped onto. I don't know if you jumped onto it or not, but I guess if you're here with me, you probably jumped on your own new timeline, whatever that means for you. But stuff was happening that was so weird. I just have to share it in case you notice this. So I was getting ready one day to go walk, and I have these sweatbands that I put on, and they're bright yellow, and I swear there was both of them laying there, and I picked one up to put it on, and I was like, no, I can't do that yet. I have to put sunscreen on. And so I set it back down, turned around, put my sunscreen on, put my tennis shoes on, turned back around, and one of the sweatbands was missing. And I tell you people, I looked up and down for it, and I was like, well, I guess I'm just wearing one today. And I come out walking, I've got one on, and there's this little guy, the little old guy that I meet sometimes. He just moved into where I live, and he likes to talk a lot. He's really cute dog. I mean, really old guy, like probably, well, never mind. He's old. And he's like, you only have one sweatband, like very observant though, right? He's like, you only have one sweatband on today. You're out of balance. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, weird, right? And then, we had this conversation about all sorts of stuff, and I went on, and as I was walking, I was like, I'm in a timeline jump, because every time I'm in between timelines, I lose something. And I'll know that so it's like the one thing went ahead of me, and the other stuff stays behind. This has happened before. And I've read about people talking about this too, like other people when they're talking about quantum time and stuff. Talk about this happening, and you probably could even see it like in a sci-fi, story or something. So I'm walking, and my guides are like, yeah, it's a timeline jump. That item it's just kind of a confirmation for me of what's happening kind of behind the scenes. So yeah, you're timeline jumping. Okay, your sweatband went ahead to a new timeline. And I said, I guess I'll know that I'm on the new timeline when I find that sweatband. So I had that, revelation, and I get home, and I'm doing a couple of things, and I go to where they were when I first lost them, and I just put my hand down a little bit. And the sweatband that I had before was like buried down underneath a couple of other little, sweatbands and stuff like that. And it was right there. And I'm like, oh, I've arrived on my new timeline. So I was excited about that. And the sweatband reappeared. And then the cards, okay, the Oracle decks. I'm going to share about the Oracle decks, and I'm going to share about July, and then we're going to just get into the story. But the Oracle decks that I ordered, I mean, I paid like for priority shipping. These are trackable. They were supposed to be coming in like 2-day shipping or whatever. And I saw that they were shipped out, and they're shipped out from the United States and not even very far from me, like, I don't know, North Carolina or something like that. And almost right around that same time, sometime last week, they're supposed to be delivered last Tuesday is what it was. And all of a sudden last Tuesday, I go to look at the tracking and I'm like, oh, it says out for delivery. And then all of a sudden the delivery status says vacant. And I'm like, vacant? Is this another? And I read the description and it's like, this location does not exist or is out of business. And I'm like, holy crap. It's another like timeline thing. Like almost like your current location like jumped forward somewhere, and now your post person can't find you anymore. And it said vacant. I was like, oh crap, my cards are going on some adventure without me. And the ultimate, like the other thing that's cool about these cards, okay, I do have to say this because when they come in, they're going to be like ultra magical. One is Shaman's Drum, okay, and it's a very, obviously, shamanic deck, but I made it with the input of some indigenous elders, Native American elders, like that came to me through channeling or whatever and helped me make that deck. And it was very divine masculine oriented. I remember making it and I'm like, I don't feel much divine feminine in this deck at all. It just feels very masculine. And it was 3 indigenous. They were all chiefs, I believe. I'll have to remember their names in a minute. So it was a very divine masculine deck, and I love the feel of it. And then Twin Hearts was a very divine feminine deck, even though it's for, we're going to use it for love-related stuff and relationship healing and all of that. It was like Kuan Yin and Mother Mary, like the Sisters of the Rose came in and helped me make that deck. So it's a very divine feminine deck. We are going to have a lot to talk about too with divine feminine, divine masculine. We're going to have some stuff in July to kind of get over some hurdles with all of that. But okay, so it's a divine feminine and a divine masculine deck together in the same package. Holy shit, this is so weird. And it's lost, okay? These metaphors, you guys know I like my metaphors. It's lost somewhere. That's what it says vacant. And then I follow the status of it. And then it says return to sender. And I'm like, crap, I don't want my stacks to go back to the sender. Oh my gosh. So then I had to like open a ticket with the people. And it's like outsourced. It's outsourced desktops, desk support people or whatever. I can tell just by the language of the email responses. I can always tell when it's not, English is not my first language. And I have a thing about outsourcing. I'm sorry. It's just usually not very good customer service. So, right then and there too, I was like, do I want my decks made with these people? Because I don't know if they really care about customer service. So I had to get on it about the customer service, because part of my professional background was in customer service, like really trained hard in like excellent customer service from my my company that I was at for so long. So that's one of my triggers, is like not getting good service or deceitful service. That's another whole thing I'll talk about later. But they were like, oh, well, we can see. They didn't even look at the tracking when I was like, it's lost. And they were like, well, so sorry that it's lost and that you're inconvenienced by this. And then they closed my ticket. And I was like, what? And so I emailed them back and I'm like, no, this is lost. I mean, go yourself and check the tracking number since you people produced it. And they did. And they came back and they're like, well, we don't know what's going on with this ticket. Why don't you wait until July the 6th is what they told me. Wait until July the 6th. See what's happening with the package. And then we'll consider reordering I'm like, I paid a lot of money for these cards. You people are going to do something to fix it. Because I think their address label that they printed was something's not right. Then yesterday, I checked the tracking again, and the tracking says package has arrived back. So it went all the way to another city to be returned to sender. And then yesterday, it says that it's all the way back here in my town somewhere and that it's out for delivery. And so all day yesterday, I waited for it because it said out for delivery and the status never changed. So I'm like, again, back customer service. The post office is another one I don't like to talk about. Oh, anyway, so these are old hierarchies and old things crumbling, right? This is like 3D reality stuff. Post office is one. I'm like, can we just do away with the post office? It just delivers 90% junk mail anyway. Sorry. And that's what keeps them in business. So is that really a needed function? Is that really a needed function? I don't think so anymore. So we're waiting for the cards. They're on a journey. A divine masculine and divine feminine in some packages, and we're going back and forth in some cities. And now supposedly they're here somewhere. So hopefully sometime next week the decks will come. We will chat with them about what kind of journey they've been on and see what's going on there. All right, let me see what guides are here supporting us right now. So I personally have Archangel Metatron, Archangel Michael. Oh, we got all the archangels. Raphael, Haniel. They're saying that's it. So I've got 4 archangels. And then I've got other guides. So we're going to talk about July, and then we're going to get into the story. So July, I don't know. They just keep saying emotions. The overarching theme for July, August, and September is signs and portents, the holy made manifest, or signs and omens, the holy made manifest. Things you're starting to see as omens of what's to come in your physical reality. You're starting to see things balancing out. But we're going to do some, I don't want to call it work, we're going to do some fun in July with emotions, because I still feel when I touch the collective energy for the tribe that listens here, and I know it too because I'm experiencing it myself, there's inner child work that we want to do, but I want to do it in a fun way. Because even my voice is getting emotional just talking about it. So, and I know because I've worked with some of you one-on-one on working with emoting and emotions. So I guess I will share about July here in a second. What do you want me to say about July? Okay, just keep going. So for July, we're going to do, we're working with the Pleiadians for July. And somehow I knew that was coming when I found my blue ball. If you did the scavenger hunt, the Pleiadians came in. And the Pleiadians, we may not even get to this story today. We may not even get to Free Bear Float. The Pleiadians came in, and they were the first star family that I ever worked with, that I ever channeled light language. Was the Pleiadians first? I think it was Lyrans and Pleiadians. And they are, to me, with the exception of all the star families are high vibe to me, but in different ways. Like their energy signature is different to me. When I feel each one, I feel their vibe, their frequency. It's all high. It's much higher than ours, but I feel it differently. And the Pleiadians are all about like being childlike and joyful and fun and playful, and we want to go there. That's where I want to go in July. I want to go there with us in the podcast in July for all the work that we do. So we may be reworking some of our series, like Divine Masculine SOS, Divine Feminine. We may be doing stuff for that, but we may be doing it under like a different moniker, I guess. I am going to, I believe, I did years ago, 2 or 3 years ago for folks. We did it as a private workshop, but I'm going to do it on the podcast this time. Child's Play was a really fun workshop I did. At that time, I did it with Elton John, Marilyn Monroe, and Joan of Arc, working with their higher selves. But we may bring in some new guides, and we're going to do Child's Play with the Pleiadians. We're going to work with the Divine Masculine, Divine Feminine, and Divine counterparts for that. And we're going to clear up a whole lot of, I think, we're going to get some clarity on this whole divine feminine, divine masculine thing. And I definitely, divine counterparts, I told you I've learned a whole lot about the quote unquote twin flame stuff that I've still been asked to wait until Lionsgate to share with folks. So maybe you guys need this workshop first before I share that, because they're saying some of you need to work up to what I'm going to talk about in case you want to do the work that will come afterwards in August for that. What else? So we have the Pleiadians, we have root beer float with the bringers of the light, and we have child's play workshop, and that could just be our focus for July. And then cards, we have these card decks coming in soon, hopefully sometime soon. We're going to be doing lots of stuff with the card decks. So if you don't follow me on YouTube and you want to see the visual, I do my best on the podcast. I do bring these card readings in, and I think it is fun to listen both ways and challenge your auditoriness for those of you that want to strengthen your clairaudience, because a lot of people are focused on the third eye opening, which it's fine. Yeah, it really doesn't, it serves multiple purposes. So we could go so deep into third eye. We could take a whole month on just working with the third eye, and we still wouldn't cover all of what the third eye can really actually do. Maybe that's for another month or whatever. But, or if you guys want, if there was enough people interested to dive into like a third eye workshop, I would do that offline, like maybe in a Zoom or something. I don't know. I have to have people interested in these things. I don't want to just do some of these offline things and then what happens is people say they're interested and then no one really wants to commit at some point to doing the work that it's going to take. So whatever. I'm getting off target. This is Pleiadian light language coming in. They're just raising the vibration. You don't have to accept that. If you don't want the activation, you never have to take anything you don't want. So we're going to have fun. My goal is to have fun the month of July, while still getting some inner work done, because there is some inner child work that needs to be done. I can feel it. I've still been having a lot of stuff with my skin. Feeling like a really weird stuff coming up through my skin. It just feels like I have a sunburn sometimes throughout my whole entire body. And I don't see anything there, but when I ask my guides, like, what is going on with my skin, it feels like someone is burning me from the inside out. It feels like I have a super bad sunburn, and they're like, you are going through catharsis. And I was like, what the heck is catharsis? I don't even know what that word means. And when I looked it up, it's like deep, deep emotions like coming out. And I'm like, well, those are going to have to come out some other way other than my skin, because this is very, very uncomfortable. So some of that work we're doing, and I know there's a lot of you that listen that have skin issues because you guys have told me. You guys have told me privately, like, my skin, this and that and the other. So this feels very intense for me this time around. I've never had this much weird feelings in my skin. It's sensitive, but so I don't know if you guys are experiencing the same. It's just very strange. Okay, so where are we at? So I'm going to get into root beer float, because I want us to have our story. Some of you may be like, I've heard this story before, or parts of it, because you may have heard this on a couple of other episodes, but I want to get it all in one, because as we go through our Sundays of July, we're going to continue on the story with all of its metaphors and meanings, teachings that we bring in on Sundays, and then this will end up being a book that you guys can go read for free, the ebook. Plus, my friends, the Bringers of the Light, are back. Dakar, Abigail, and we have new friends in Bringers of the Light, Oakwood, Pinky Pinkerton and her sister Maggie. So Let's just play a little bit with root beer float so everything's not so serious. All right, and we're going to start with Chapter 1, Oakwood Rules. Pinky picked up her pen and made a note in her unicorn notebook. She had a lot to do before the surprise party. Special guests were coming to Oakwood, and she had to get ready. It wasn't every day that bringers of the light from across the ocean would be coming to Oakwood, and she wanted to make sure that the old bookshop was clean, fresh, saged, and decorated for their arrival. The train that brought folks in from the old airport in the big town would be pulling into the station promptly at noon tomorrow, and she had a lot of work to do. She rang a small bell, and the door over the old bookshop opened on its own. Relics was open for business. Pinky nibbled at her frosted donut and drank a mug of hot chocolate as townspeople of Oakwood entered the shop to peruse the magical books, sacred tools, candles, and body care items she had so carefully procured for the shop. There was to be a coven meeting that night, but Pinky had decided to reschedule so that their friends arriving tomorrow could attend. At least she hoped they would. Pinky picked up the vintage rotary dial phone and spoke into the mouthpiece. "Please dial up my sister Meggie," she said, and the old play phone connected directly to Meggie's cell phone. "Meggie here," her sister said, answering on the first ring. "Meg," Pinky said, going down her list of items she would need for the arrival of the bringers of the light. "I need a spare bedroom made up in the cottage behind the cabin. Can you fit that into your day, please?" she said, hoping that the girl could do the decorations. "Sure, sis," Meggie said, clutching her small handbag and using the other hand for her phone and coffee cup. "I know exactly what they'll like," she said, taking a sip of the spicy drink she had made the morning before. She spat it out on the ground. "Darn it," she said, somewhat haphazardly. "Old coffee again," Pinky said, laughing at her soul sister. "Yeah, and I forgot to check the coffee pot again," Meggie said. "I was distracted again by that pirate. You know, that guy that likes to come into the shop sometimes." "Oh, no, the one with the peg leg," Meggie said, seeing the old guy in her mind's eye. Oh my gosh, you guys, I didn't realize this when I wrote this before. I wonder if this is Jean Lafitte again. He came out in, what's the story we just finished? Don't even remember now. Oh, come on now. Whatever was we just finished. Oh yeah, Spirit Guides of Tessa Locke. Oakwood was not a very magical town. It was more a place for wayward magical folk who had been displaced from their own towns or spaces by one thing or another. A kind of town of misfit magical people lived amongst the non-magical, which could sometimes cause clashes of character and dissonance. "I also need a few sundries for our meeting tomorrow night," Pinky said, holding out her hand to admire her new gel nails. The shops had opened again, and her nail girl had done a great job of painting pink rainbows on her nails. Everything was coming into place for the magical couple's arrival tomorrow noon. "Sure, what do you need?" Meggie said, fanning her face with a small Japanese folding fan. She got hotter than most these days, with her needing to fan her face and place her feet into cold water. It was tough getting older, she thought, as she procured pen and paper from her bag to take down the list of items. So we don't know exactly how old these girls are. "Let's get mugwort from Miss Nancy's and a tart pie from Brookstone Bakery. You know which one, Strawberry Sunset, I think it's called." But Pinky's mental list was cut short by the other line on her cell ringing in. "Meggie, I've got to call you back," Pinky said, disconnecting her call with the older girl. "Hello," Pinky said, answering her other line. "Hi, Pinky?" the voice on the other end of the line said in a very gentle and friendly voice. "Yes, this is Pinky," the girl said with a smile at the sound of her old friend's voice. "Ha, I got you," Kyanite Fairy-Wing said, laughing at the sound of her friend on the other side of the phone. So for those of you that don't follow, or maybe do and don't remember, Kyanite Fairy-Wing, the Missing Shadow books. Chumasha is the sister town of Oakwood. Chumasha is the magical fairy town, and Oakwood's like the muggle town, which sounds like it's getting a little bit more populated with magical folks now than when that story first came out. Chapter 2, A New Direction. Abigail listened intently as Dakar and Highcore, the spirits of Brighty Isle and Source, laid out the plan for the coming months. Summer was to be spent elsewhere, away from Rockaway Point. There was a small town in the United States that needed the light more than ever now. Oh boy, do we. Oh my God, bring the light over here. More light in the United States. Dakar had moved into town, and the bringers of the light Oakwood division had asked for help. It was something of a specialty that the coven, Abigail and Dakar, could definitely work on. They would leave tonight and be in Oakwood in the morning. The twister of emotions, here we go again with emotions, you guys, swept through Abigail. She hadn't planned on this. She had work to do at Crest. The summer baking challenge was coming up. And what about the solstice? They always spent that on their special place. The coven always met at the Grove Landing, and the bringers of the light Rockaway Point always celebrated at the Monolith in Lancashire. But now a strange land, a strange town, and new acquaintances beckoned, and most of all needed the bringers of the light. They had no choice. High Corps said this intel was coming from the upper council, so best to get their bags packed and just accept the changes that were coming. Oh, acceptance. That's one of my life lessons. Look on the bright side, Dakar said, holding her hand. You'll still have the ocean and me. He winked at her, and she calmed. She could do anything, and it would be easier with him there to support her. He helped her shine brighter. That's what a divine counterpart does. They help you shine brighter. High Corps summoned the boat, which had been hidden off in a tall grove of trees. Junkontoi shyly handed Abigail her phone and told her to return any time. Their work together was only just beginning. The spirits of this little isle would hold sacred space for this work. High Corps disappeared, and Dakar helped Abigail into the small boat with one oar. They took turns rowing as Abigail waved goodbye to Brighty Isle. Tomorrow they would be in foreign lands, and she had much work to do to prepare. Chapter 3, The Plane of Existence. The airport was cold inside and seemed very empty, Abigail thought, as she rolled her carry-on bag to the security checkpoint. Dakar had gone home to pack, and she had told him to meet her at the boarding gate. She was anxious about the flight and about the secrets she had been shown on Brighty Isle. So much was going to change in such a very short period of time. She wondered if she could handle it all. Junkontoi had shared things with her that he probably shouldn't have, but he knew she was in her integrity. The bringers of the light had to know what was coming. It was the job of the Brighty Isle elementals to plug into the sacred consciousness grid and pluck out the intensity of the information. They had their own work to do with that knowledge. Abigail pulled out her laptop and allowed her bags to be poked and prodded as she presented her new passport to the agents. Stamped and ticketed, she made her way to the boarding gate. A pert young girl behind the boarding counter smiled sweetly at her. Your flight will be boarding soon, miss. The ticket agent took her boarding pass and stamped it. Abigail was certain that this whole time through the airport she had been followed. She wasn't sure who or why, but she had felt eyes upon her. She sat with her back against the tarmac and the bank of windows looking outside. She scanned the crowd that was waiting around her for flights to board and for flights to arrive. She saw someone moving quickly through the crowd, and she heard a voice she knew well say something like, I have to get to my flight. My woman is waiting for me. Oh, Dakar. Abigail breathed a sigh of relief and then a sigh of disappointment. It was someone else. But how could she have mistaken that voice? The younger man came and sat down on the aisle across from her. He fumbled and fidgeted around with his bag and his passport and the like, while simultaneously looking at her and smiling. She felt she knew him from somewhere, but she passed the idea out of her mind and looked away. Do I know you? The voice came in her direction. I love this. These guys. She pivoted back to him and their eyes locked. She had seen them before, although not in this same body. She did, in fact, know him well. Okay, so I have to link this back. The do I know you seems to always come out in the weirdest set of circumstances. So it came out now. It's like, obviously he knows her, because you're going to find out here. It's Rainicourt, her familiar. But the same thing happened between Timbre and Jameson when, it's so weird, when Jameson was her familiar, the hawk, and he shapeshifted back into a man. And they passed each other at Marie Laveau's tomb gravesite, and she said to him, "Do I know you?" Like, she saw a guy who she thought was super hot, and she saw him and she said, "Do I know you?" It just makes me laugh. These guys bringing these things. So it's the same weird set of circumstances. Like, "Yes, we know you." "Do I know you?" The voice came in her direction. "I'm Rainicourt," he said, extending his hand as Abigail shivered and extended hers back. How and what would have come into him to take chance like this, she wasn't sure, but Abigail was now shaking hands with what 12 hours ago was her raven familiar Rainicourt. He had not been happy about being left behind at his keeper's house, Polly Willikers. No wonder he wasn't happy, because Polly Willikers was taking care of him. We saw that in Spirit Guides of Tessa Locke. Oh my God. When Jenna Lee said that her neighbor Polly had been keeping a raven, and the raven had gotten like upset and shifted into a man. She heard a story that he had shifted into a man and left because he didn't. Okay, here's why he didn't like being there. Again, Bringers of the Light fans, because in the very first book, was it the very first book? Is it the first or the second? It was either Pumpkin Pie Latte. I know a lot of people have read Pumpkin Pie Latte, so you guys tell me because I don't remember. It's either Pumpkin Pie Latte or what on the podcast we were calling Turkey Pot Pie, which I don't even remember. It became something else in book form. I really should sync up the names. They were having a coven meeting. The Bringers of the Light, the Spectre and Book Coven, was having a coven meeting, and Rainicourt met Polly Williker's familiar cat, Scratchy, for the first time. And he hated him. He didn't like Scratchy. He didn't know why he didn't like him, but he didn't want to have to spend any time around him. So in this case here, I don't know what Abigail was thinking. She took Rainicourt to Polly Williker's house so that Polly Willikers could take care of him. But Rainicourt and Scratchy do not get along. So that might have been another thing. He had not been happy about being left behind at his keeper's house. He could, of course, take care of himself, but he had been left behind on too many previous adventures, and he was tired of being at home. Wasn't a familiar's job to serve and protect, after all? Wasn't he supposed to be in contact and in the presence of his charge as much as possible? Nothing was going to keep him from this trip. He needed a vacation too, and so he had shifted back, put on some of Dakar's old clothes that had been left in Abigail's closet, and packed a bag. Okay, this is the Pleiadians coming in too, because the Pleiadians always, oh my God, they always bring me so much like stuff to laugh about. He was a bringer of the light too, and he was charged by a higher power to protect his guide. He acted somewhat nonchalant, but was ever watchful of what was going on around him and Abigail. He was looking for someone who might be missing one white sock, someone who had been in Abigail's home before. Oh, guys, I don't remember. Oh, was that Tambourine Jameson? Baby Argyle Inn, where he flew in and there was like a white sock under the bed, and he picked it up and took it away, and he knew it didn't belong to anybody there, and we never knew the keeper, that we never knew who this white sock, why is it a white sock? We never knew who the white sock belonged to. Someone had been in Abigail's house before. That's someone who was doing everything they could to break up the power couple and gain control of Abigail for himself. The same someone who was looking intently at them both right now from behind the latest copy of the Germantown Times. Hans von Brinkter. Oh, there's Hans von Brinkter. This morning I heard Hans, and I was like, who's Hans? And I forgot he's in this story. Hans von Brichter, I don't know who he is, was no fool. He knew he had been made, but he didn't care. No self-respecting man was going to give up without a fight. He had loved Abigail since grade school, and now he would have her for his very own. But Hans von Brichter had his work cut out for him. He did not work for the light. And in this story, the light always wins. All right, one more chapter, you guys. Oh, the ball. Okay, this is one of my favorite chapters. And then I think we're going to wrap it up. Chapter 4, July Full Moon. Dakar was running late as usual. He was supposed to meet Abigail at the airport, but something else had caught his attention. A small blue ball, the Pleiadians, had rolled across the floor and right out the front door as he was pulling out his rolling bag. And there's truly no As there's truly no happenstance, that word has been coming up a lot lately, you guys, happenstance. There's something about it when you look at it. It's almost like it's a code word or something. As there's truly no happenstance, he knew he needed to follow it. The ball was being moved onward by the wind, a light and carefree breeze that soothed. Dakar saw the ball rolling towards the bayfront, and he picked up his pace slightly. He couldn't go at this too long, or he might miss his flight. This could always be nothing at all, he thought, as he wondered what others would think, seeing him running after a small ball. The ball, being carried by otherworldly light, bounced joyfully down the sidewalk as it passed Crust, Abigail's bake shop, and kept going. Abigail had closed the shop for the summer, not knowing how long she would be gone in the States. The ball bounced on as Dakar ran past Crust, and his mind went to Abigail, most likely waiting for him at the airport by now. The ball made a side turn down a dark alley outside of the Fork and Spoon and kept going, passing the back entrance to the Where-Begone Tavern, and finally came to rest outside the back door of one Mr. Albie Chalmers. Now, friend, you might recall Mr. Chalmers from our dear Argyle Inn some stories back. Albie, somewhat taken aback by his love Maggie's sudden turn for the better, had decided he couldn't live in this weird relationship any longer. It was best that they part for a while. So Albie had left Maggie behind at the Argyle and had purchased a flat/record store right in the heart of Rockaway Point. The ball bounced gayfully as it did its best to point the way. Dakar finally caught up and, looking around, spotted the ball bouncing at the back door to Albie's record shop. What he lacked in creativity, Albie Chalmers made up for in his quick wit and customer service approach. He sat in a large red velvet wingback chair, holding a glass of red wine and eyeing the door. The full buck moon would be showing itself in a couple of days, and Albie was preparing for tomfoolery to arrive at the record shop. He had even pulled out the Handbook de los Santos from its hiding place under the floorboards, hoping there would be something in the book to help him get through this strange time. He had, of course, been unable to recall the incantation that unlocked the darn thing, and had put it back under the floorboards until he could get someone to help him with it. At that, the tinkle bells over the back door sounded as Dakar entered, carrying a small blue ball. Albie started recalling the whole ordeal when he last saw Dakar. Albie had been scared out of his mind and had left the Argyle to run away for a while. But here he was again, the man who had caused such strange upheaval the last time they had met. "It's you," Albie said, trembling as he stood. Dakar, never one to be surprised, even at such strange goings-on as this July full moon was bringing, stood smiling as he watched the younger man stand to offer him his hand. "Hello," Dakar said, with the same aplomb and sensuality. Holy shit, even I get nervous around him. With the same aplomb and sensuality he exuded, for all souls he encountered was just as perplexed at Albie at this strange turn of events. "And so it is," Dakar said, bypassing Albie's outstretched hand to give him a firm pat on the back. "What are you doing here?" he asked Albie. "I've been here a while," Albie said, "but it's been quite boring until now. I suspect you're here for it," he asked Dakar, as his eyes swiveled to give away the hiding spot of the Handbook de los Santos. "I guess so," Dakar said, suddenly realizing what was happening. "May I?" Dakar asked, lifting up the floorboards to expose the book. He was in fact asking the book rather than Albie. The Handbook de los Santos answered by shooting an energy beam out and into the room. Dakar and Albie both started. No one had been able to crack the code yet, but here they were, brought together again for who knows what adventures. "Well, I guess you're both coming with me," Dakar said, motioning for the book and Albie to follow him. "Better pack a bag and find something to carry this in." Dakar flashed Albie a smile. "What are you talking about?" Albie grimaced. He was quite happy in his record shop. "We've got business to attend to elsewhere," Dakar said. "Magic and mischief are afoot again." And with that, the ragtag bunch, the wizard, the bringer of the light, and the strange Handbook de los Santos, locked the door to Albie's record store and made their way back to Dakars. They had a plane to catch, and none too soon. Dun, 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 more magic and mischief. I find it interesting that we've read this on the podcast like twice now. It's like we read bits and pieces of it. We had retrogrades, and now the retrogrades are over. We're coming back, and we're like beginning again. We're beginning again. So this is chapters 1 through 4 of Root Beer Float, along with its associated meanings and metaphors coming from the guides that are overlighting this story. And so I want to thank you all for hanging with me on yet another episode. Next time I come to see you, I would hope it would be for card reading, but who knows what's happening to the cards. So I will just see what's going to come up next. And we will chat with you all again soon on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Take care. This episode has been brought to you by Relics Bookshop, Oakwood's premier location for magical books, sacred tools, candles, body care items, and more. Be you wizard, muggle, or witch, Relics has something for everyone. Thank you so much for listening.